This massive piece of oak in front of you is our next project. This is going to be my bar top for my kitchen. Basically, I've got a half wall in the kitchen. I'll pop up a picture here. That is sort of the typical 90s open concept kitchen. But I'm going to turn it into a breakfast bar for myself. This was one massive slab. I believe there is one piece that's missing off this side. I had to cut these down because they actually had some natural splits in them that I really didn't want to deal with, you know, doing bow ties and epoxy fill and all that. I want to keep it as solid as possible. So this side over here will be the live edge. That'll be the kitchen side. And this side over here will just be a nice straight edge. I might taper it back just a little bit, just to give it some dimension. I do have a big void here, but my plan is since this is already split, and I cut that with a circular saw just to get it down to size so we could handle it and get it planed. But it's also got some knots here. My plan is to take about 2 inches out of this, get this squared up and put together, and then I'll cut this edge here at my width that I need, cut my length, and we'll be good to go. Then we'll glue it all together, finish it, and install it. It'll be pretty simple, larger project. These are 110 inches long. I only need 107, which is good, so that'll let me get rid of any end checking. Not too big of a deal. We're going to keep the live edge over here, so there'll be lots of sanding over there. And then we'll get her installed. So let's get to it. And here again, just to show you the length of the wood a little up close. We did have this big nail here. I was not able to get it out, so I was able to cut it down deep enough so we could actually plane it. There are a few other spots here that had nails when we sawed it. That's why there's this black kind of staining. It's from the iron. And then there is this knot here. A lot of that will disappear. And then we got this void here, and we'll take a section out of this so I won't have near as much to fill. And it kind of gets rid of these problem areas here as well. I do have a little bit of dry rot this end, so that'll need to be stabilized with some epoxy. It'll still look nice. That'll be up against a wall there. And then we got the nice live edge here that'll all get sanded, smoothed out, dressed up. And then this end here is pretty interesting. It's got a little bit of a shelf to it. Pretty cool looking. I think this is going to look really nice in my kitchen. This is the first project of the big white oak that I had slabbed in December of 2024. So it's March of 2025. These were cut. This tree was cut down in April of 2024. So we're going on 2 years of just to get to this point. Sometimes it takes that long. It's set over, we had it milled, let's say it was cut in April, was milled in December. It sat for a whole other year before it went in the kiln just to get it down to temp, or down to moisture. And it was about a month in the kiln to get it dried. So, and I wound up with a total of 7 slabs. The biggest is, I believe, 50 inches at the widest point. And I had them all sawed at 2.5 inches thick, so I could easily get, even with any, because the nails will make the blade dull, so it kind of makes the wood go like this a little bit. So we were able to keep this at about 1.75 inches. I think I'm just below 1.75 inches. So it's a nice thick top. Will look really neat. All right, so we've got it jointed together more or less. I do have a problem area here that's not quite planed, so I'm going to run these back through the planer on this side to get below that. We'll have a nice smooth surface then, and I'll probably get rid of a little bit more of that void down there. Not a lot. We're only going to take off maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe less. I don't know, we'll see how it comes out here, but we're moving right along. All right, so there we go. We got that all planed down, nice and smooth. Everything's the same thickness. And now we can get the domino out. We'll domino it, glue it together, and that'll be it for today. We'll have to let that sit, and then I will cut the width and length and start sanding. One of the hardest parts of working in a small shop with big items is you're constantly taking this stuff, putting it together and taking it down just to get it out of your way. But it is what it is, so that's what we're going to do. Someday I'll have a bigger shop and I won't have to take this stuff down all the time. You have to remain organized. It'll drive you insane. I think that's the biggest key to small shops is organization. I've been in guys' shops that were just absolute disasters, and they were actually bigger than my shop, and then they complain they don't have enough room. I think those guys, even if they had a 200 by 200 shop, they still wouldn't have enough room because they're not organized. That's just my 2 cents on organization. I've always been a pretty organized person. But it really got ingrained in me when I started managing a warehouse. Not really managing, but organizing a warehouse for a company. We're constantly adding product. We're constantly adding product and taking products away, so shelving was constantly jostling. So this would move down and that would move over and this would move up and that moved down to get yourself 3 or 4 shelves, and it was a nightmare. It seemed like on a monthly basis we were reorganizing, but that was just kind of the nature of the beast. So I became really good at visualizing the space and trying to maximize what I had in order to fit this widget into that slot. So I got really good at visualizing, and I think a lot of people, they don't have that vision. But if you slow down and think about it, you can gain that vision. You just can't constantly just run from one thing to the next. You got to think about, it's like chess. You got to move, 3 or 4 spaces or 3 or 4 moves ahead. And I feel like that's what I'm always doing, but I like it that way, I guess, or I wouldn't do it. So I marked my dominoes. I'm going to go 4 inches from the end because I know I'm going to trim the ends off. I don't want to run the risk of hitting a domino. So 4 inches from the end, and then roughly every 12 inches, but this was at 10 because of this void. 12 inches worked out here because of this knot. There were no other trouble spots, so then I just went every 12 and then 4 from the end. That'll give us good alignment. That's all the domino really does in this case. I'm using the biggest domino that I can run, which is a 10 millimeter, 10 by 50 in this. And then that'll give us plenty of spots to make sure that this glues together straight. There is just a little bit of twist in this, but it's not that bad. So anything I'm going to worry about for this application. Again, this is kind of a rustic bar with a live edge, so a little bit of surface deviation is okay in my book, and this is for me, so if anybody's going to complain, it's going to be me or my wife. So I just noticed this is the flip side of where the nail is on the other side. This is actually the head of that nail. So it's no wonder that I could not pull it out because I was pulling backwards. So what I'm going to try to do is drive it out from side that I was working from, and we'll push it the other way, and I think I'll actually get it out of there and it'll be out of my way. It's going to have to be filled anyway, so I might as well just get it out of the way. There'll be no air pockets that way and make my life a lot simpler. So let's get that done. This might be a little tricky just because this is big and I work by myself. But what I'm going to do is flip this up and drive it back. There it is, right out of there. That's a big old spike. So here's where the nail was. This is actually the outside of the tree. So that's probably, I don't know, 75 years ago, at least. I mean, it was a long time ago. I don't know if there's a spot on here where I could count the rings to get back that far, but somebody had a tree stand or a tree house or something, and it's probably, I'm not sure which end is the, pretty sure that's the butt end down there, so it's 6 feet in the air. It's not a fence, I don't think, so you never know what you're going to find inside of a tree. And there we have it. It's all glued together, and we got to leave her set for a day. Come back tomorrow and keep on going. So the glue is all dry now. Got the clamps taken off. Just trying to assess things this morning. I think what I've actually decided to do is cut this end here off a little extra so that I can get rid of some of this dry rot here. It's going to have to come back pretty close to this domino, which is fine because that's going to go against the wall. And then this end over here, I am going to breadboard this so there'll be a board perpendicular to this that gets pinned on. It kind of hides the end grain and gives you a little more stability across the grain, but I also like the look of it. So I think that's what I'm going to do there. That'll help me shorten this up just a little bit. It's only going to be just a few inches wide, but that's what we're going to do. So let's get started on that. But first I'm going to rip this back edge off at my desired width. I want to get 18 inches wide. I'm a little wider than that now, so I'll get this squared off here. That gives me a square edge to cut for the breadboard and the wall side to make that square, because it's really kind of impossible if you're dealing with a live edge. Alright, so we got the back edge cut square and straight now. We're approximately 18 inches wide, the length of the project. And then I've got a piece selected for my breadboard end, which will go pretty much like that. Okay, so I've got my breadboard cut to length. It'll go like that. And then you can see that I've cut an angle on that end to match that live edge on that side. And then we'll just grind that in after we get it all situated. So let's get to attaching the breadboard itself. Okay, so what I've done is I've cut dominoes in these slots, pardon the dog barking there. And then these will get pinned into this piece. So I've drilled through holes here. Try to get you a picture there. So you can see that goes through all the way through there. And we'll put a dowel rod in there and pin that. And then this piece here, I've cut my dominoes here. These will get drilled through part way, and then the holes that go through these will actually get slotted a little bit so that this piece can expand back and forth. Because wood expands across the grain, so there'll be some seasonal movement back and forth. And that's how you compensate for that, otherwise it will tear itself apart. Okay, so we've got our dominoes all set here, and as you can see, that end there is a little bit oblonged so that it can slide back and forth inside of this slot. But the pin will go straight through. None of this gets glued on that side. It only gets glued on this side, and then the top of these pegs will get glued. That way this whole thing is free to slide, but it'll still wind up being tight. And I accomplished that by actually grinding off part of this end here to make this shorter. Then I shove that all the way in. That offsets this hole just a little bit. And we'll make it pull in tight. This way, when I put the peg in, I'll have to taper the end of that dowel rod to make that push tight back. Let's see if I can get you. Alright, so I've got that installed. It's pretty tight. And I went ahead and shaped this edge here and over here. So that'll all blend in. Now we're pretty much down to sanding. And I gotta cut it to length yet. Okay, so I've got it. This is about the bottom side. And I've got it sanded to 80 grit. Just cleaned up the glue seam, which you can see is pretty good. Now I'll tape this off because I will epoxy from the top side. And I just want to seal off all these holes here. Just want to seal off all these holes. So the epoxy doesn't run through, and any little spot that I see that I think might go all the way through, it'll probably be more than overkill, but that's kind of how I do it. So far it's looking pretty good. We should have this on epoxy by the end of the day. Okay, so you can see we got it all sanded down. Both sides are sanded to 80 grit. Got this bark inclusion cleaned out. I'm ready to start epoxying. Get these all filled in. And I'll bring it back when that's done. I'm not going to bore you with me pouring epoxy. I just bring it back when it's done, ready to sand off. It's pretty simple. Just mix it, dump it. So. Okay, so we've got the first coat of epoxy on here. It's dry now. I just went ahead and did a complete seal coat on all of this. But I still got to fill a little bit here or there. Just a few spots that soaked in. But we'll go ahead and get everything sanded as much as I can and find out if there's any other flaws that I gotta fix. So, in the background, the CNC is running. I'm making some pistol racks today. A custom order. See it running on the computer over there. Got my faithful companion with me. He's taking a little respite here. So, let's get at it. Alright, so it's day 3. 4. It's day 4. So we are done with epoxy now. I've got the last coat on here. Just a few spots that had to be filled in still, where it's soaked in really good. This just has to be all sanded off, and we will be more or less ready to start final sanding. I still do have to cut it to length. That's probably about the last thing I'll do. Other than that, turned out really nice. You can start to see some of the color in this, just because this does have a seal coat of epoxy on it. But let's get to sanding, and we'll be able to get this thing finished up this week. So there we are. We're final sanded. This is all ready for finish now. I just wiped it down with some mineral spirits just to take the bulk of the dust off. We still have to cut it to length yet, so there'll be a little bit more sanding to be done on that end, but I think for the most part we are almost done with this. All right, as you can see, we are down to the brass tacks now. I've got the end cut to length, and we are ready to finish. So I'm going to flip this piece over. We'll finish the back, roll it over, finish the front, and then it'll sit for a day. And then I am going to go ahead and take this the next step and put the Sheen Plus on. That'll give us a nice satin finish, and it should really make this thing pop. And there it is, all finished. I'll let this dry for a day, and then I'll put the Sheen Plus, which gives you a satin finish on it, so it'll be just a little bit more glossy than it is now. Not much, but just a little bit to make it pop. Alright, so it's all dry now. It's been sitting overnight, so 24 hours. And now we are ready to put on the Sheen Plus, which will give us a satin finish on this. And it's pretty simple. It's the same as any other the Rubio products. It's a two-part. So same hardener, and then the Sheen Plus is the 3-to-1. So, and it goes really, really far, so you only got to use just a little bit. So probably this whole thing will probably only take 15 milliliters of Sheen Plus. So I just got to get my measuring spoon here. And I just use a scoop like this. Just a 1/3 cup, or 15 milliliter measuring spoon is all. So I'll just use one of those, and then it'll be 1/3 of a scoop of hardener, or they call it accelerator. The only real difference is you apply this with a red pad, and then you buff it with a white pad. Then you dry it with a rag, and then you buff it again with the white pad that you just used. And then you leave it set for 24 hours, and it's good to go. These funky live edges can be a little challenging too. You just really got to work it in. Last thing you want is a dry spot when you finish up. Trying to dry it with this white pad. Just keep working it. So you get most of it wiped off with this pad. Then you just go over it with your cloth, wipe off the excess. Not too dry, but you don't want streaks. Okay, that's done. And then with the oily side, you go back over it again with the white pad. Buff it one more time. And then one more wipe with the grain. There it is. That's pretty much how it'll look when it dries. It'll be just a little bit duller, but not much. It really gives it a lot of depth. Alright, well I appreciate you watching to the very end of this video. I will pop up some pictures once I'm done here of the final install. I'm not going to video the install, but I will show you what it all looks like when it's all put together. So far I'm pretty pleased. Now, as long as the boss, aka my wife, approves, we're all good. You guys have a good one. We'll catch you on the next one.